Good morning, everybody, to Contemporary Issues class on a windy February day. It is just really blowing at my house here in
It is.
Castle
Yeah.
Rock and Castle Pines. Yours too, Helen. You're here in
It
Castle
is.
Pines.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a sunny, pretty day, and we wanted to talk today about 10 questions of faith. So just kind of a discussion today about faith issues, stir us to think. Usual announcements. Please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen so that we can keep the background noise down. And we are recording this session as we always do, so that's a public notice for replay. And please be kind to our speakers. And how is everybody today? Ready to watch the Super Bowl this afternoon? Want to make any predictions? I see your thumbs up, Bob. Who are you rooting for?
Kansas City.
Me too.
Kansas
That's
City,
right. That's right.
It'll be a
Anybody?
fun game. It'll be a fun game either way.
What do
Will
you
be a
think the
close one.
coin flip's gonna be, heads or tails?
Yeah, interesting.
Last year,
No.
a guy bet $3 million on the coin flip and lost. He's
Oh
betting
my
again
gosh.
this year,
Really?
Oh,
just on the coin toss. $3 million.
And it's a 50-50 chance.
Right.
Unless it's a two-headed coin or something. Yeah. Maybe
Wow.
he'll slip that in there.
okay, Steve, before you get going, can you, I don't know if Vicky was going to say anything, but we can either bring a check over today or something like that. We can, we wanted to help her out. So we'd like to, if you're available today, we can bring a check over to your house. You can
For our food donation project. Bob, just put it in the mail to us or the church. Either one is great.
You want to just do that? Because we haven't done that yet. So would you rather just have us pop it in the mail? Right, is fine.
Sure.
Okay.
That would be fine.
Okay. That sounds good.
Wonderful. Thank you to everybody who's contributed. We've raised $1.5 million from the class so far. Oh, maybe that was $200, something like that.
I was gonna say, I don't think I've been in it then, but yes, is this the $1 a day thing?
What do you make the check payable to?
To St. Andrew United Methodist.
Just, okay.
Uh-huh. And
You
put,
can drop it off to Sarah at the church and just put a little tag on it that is for Steve's food bank program.
Maybe
That's what
you
I
did.
did the other day.
You want?
the Contemporary Issues class.
Is
What?
there any
Carlo,
kind of-
Carlo
okay.
will make sure it gets where it's supposed to go and give you credit on your gift to the church.
Yeah.
That you
So
can't-
in the
yeah.
memo line, do we put contemporary issues?
Yes. That would
Okay.
be perfect. That would be perfect. Right, Vicky? You want to say anything? She's here. She just finished drying her hair. There you go, Vicky. I told him we raised $1.5 million so far.
I guess we know who you are for, Kansas City.
Oh, I am for sure. I'm a diehard. Today we want to beat Brady.
Yeah.
I received 3 checks this week, plus with mine. So I've written a note to Sarah, and I'm going to take it to the church tomorrow. So at this point, if you haven't mailed it to me, just mail it to the church and put Contemporary Issues, and they'll keep track of it. And thanks for doing that.
Okay. Good deal. Okay, any other announcements before we get started? If not, let's talk today about questions. I love the format of asking questions. I have several little books like this one that's called If Questions for the Soul. And I even wrote a little book myself called 50 Questions for Thinking Christians a few years ago.
I
That
have
just,
that.
thank you, that that looks at current questions from the left and right, how both sides of the Christian perspective look at questions. And as we talk today, really, this is intended to be just something to be a short dive into these issues, not highly deep examination, but just to spur us to think. And that's what questions do. They spur the mind to think about these things. They've been used in that way in the Socratic method for thousands of years, I believe. So let's just jump in. I want to hear what you all think today. I will share screen with just a few little questions and pictures to go with each question, but it's a good chance for us to talk about things. And there we go for the first question. I will lean on your cooperation too for us to move kind of swiftly through these. I want to hear your thoughts, but they can't be too long for any single question on here. So please be ready to share and keep your answers fairly brief, but we want to hear from you. So first one, who influenced your spiritual journey most? Would it be your grandmother, your parents, a pastor? Is there anybody that you look to that really shaped your journey, your spiritual outlook and understanding the most? Mine started in high school with a guy who was carrying around a Bible, and I said, "What are you carrying that book for?" And he said, "I think it's pretty interesting, actually." And he started me off on my journey. And then probably my most influential person was my former pastor for 25 years, Adam Hamilton of Kansas City. Just the way that he explained his journey from conservative thought and upbringing to progressive thought in his many sermons and books was highly influential on me.
A person that influenced both Jane and me was John Parrish, minister of St. James Methodist Church in Detroit. It's where Jane and I met at MYF, Methodist Youth Fellowship. And it was, I particularly remember one sermon he preached where he mentioned about what the average human being would look like in a few hundred years. And he described them, and it was a person of color. And it's what's tearing the country apart today, I think, and one of the issues about that we're going to be a nation of color in a very few years. And he may have been wrong about several hundred years, and maybe sooner than that, because of transportation and communication and those influences on the mingling of societies.
Very good.
And this is
How about-
Jane. My grandmother was a person who was responsible for seeing that her 4 grandchildren always went to the summer session of the Bible school. And she would have them stay at her home because she lived way over on the other side of Detroit. And so we stayed with her and went to the Bible school, summer Bible school, vacation Bible school. So she was the most important person to start me off in the Methodist Church and in my religious beliefs.
Very good. Anyone else?
Yeah, my beginnings of really being aware of being a Christian and what it meant started again, like Jim, in MYF, and it was mostly influenced by student ministers who were from Iliff, and they would come to our town for the weekend and be our pastor, and then they'd come back to Denver for classes. And because they were students, they were younger, and we as teenagers really related. He related to us and we to him. And I think that really kept us involved, and we had great participation.
Steve,
Yes, go right ahead.
Helen, am I unmuted? Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you, Helen. Go right
Oh,
ahead.
okay. I mean, here I am, the third person to say this, but I also was most influenced by my high school years at Central High in Pueblo. The pastor of the Methodist Church there that we did attend was Reverend Henry Baker, and he and his wife had 7 children that were all the ages of the 5 children in my family, my parents' family. And they were very active in school. All 7 of these children went all the way from junior high up to high school, but they were also very active at church. And I think, honestly, without their being so active in their dad's church, I don't think it would have had the same meaning for me that it did. But I mean, if you were anybody that wanted to be somebody, you went to those MYF things. It was like kids that didn't even belong to that church. They had ice skating parties, hot chocolate parties afterwards. And I mean, it was just wonderful. They kept the kids busy, and it was good activity. The high school kids, I mean, there were no drugs involved. Nobody even was interested. And I do think his 7 children probably influenced me as much as he did, the pastor. Wonderful people.
Good example, how the environment can influence us
Yes.
so much too.
Right.
Good point.
This is Terry. Mine
Well-
started 75 years ago in northern Illinois on Lake Michigan, up next to Wisconsin. There was 2 organizations. One was the YMCA that had day camps and taught us to swim. The other one was the Boy Scouts. And that was the day before any of these organizations got into politics. And in those 2 organizations, everybody was welcome, regardless of the religion. And we all learned Christian values as a group.
My dad was a preacher's kid. And so, you know, we were pretty much involved. It was Presbyterian church I grew up in. And I've been doing a genealogy search, both Ron and I, and digging into some of the stuff my grandfather said. You know, I've got Bibles and things of his. And, you know, it's been real interesting looking back how much an influence my parents were early on.
Go ahead.
I had, when I was in about the 5th grade, my mother was working in a beauty salon that was in a lady's garage. And their kids would be picked up every week by the Assembly of God bus. And so one night, a young couple that went to that church was having what they called a spaghetti splash out in a local barn. And so I went with one of the girls that was my age and this, with this young couple from the Assembly of God Church, and went to the spaghetti splash. And that was when I was in the 5th grade. When I graduated from high school, I became really good friends with a girl that she and I ended up going to church with her brother and sister-in-law, and come to find out it was the very same church that I had gone to the spaghetti splash with way back in the 5th grade. And this couple was now in their, you know, were middle-aged, and were still there because her father was the pastor. And that point in time and that journey part for me was very, very influential, because it really structured me in my prayer life, my church going life. It's not where I stand now, but I'll never, ever regret that part of my life because I feel like it really gave me a foothold in just being a solid Christian.
Mhm.
Steve, I'd like to raise my hand, if it's possible, if I could join. I'll try to get, not to get emotional. It was later in my life. It was a relationship I had developed at Hope United Methodist Church with Dr. John Lee. And he was a pastor and psychologist. And to be honest with you, I was going through some tough times in my life during that. It was a while back before we came to St. Andrew. And he was instrumental in developing my faith. And I was older, we went back and forth, and I was Roman Catholic when I was a child, and my grandmother was really instrumental in kind of planting the seeds a little bit, right? And then we went to college, and we were Lutheran, and Methodists really helped ground us. We loved the social justice aspect. Both of us. Both of us really loved. So I have to say Methodism in general really helped my faith a lot. But meeting Dr. John Lee, and I had a number of sessions with him, and we talked about spirituality, and he really developed. I started meditating, especially during that period, and japa meditation, and really being prayerful. And that person.
Did a lot for you.
He did a lot for me. I am who I am now from a spiritual aspect, really, because of Dr. John Lee. So.
Well, these are all great examples of individual people and environments that have shaped us. And it's good to look back and see what other people are doing too. Let's move on to the next question.
Oh, I wanted to, can I tell you that we lived on a farm way down in Iowa, and dirt farmers sort of. And my father was an alcoholic. My mother was the thing in our family, even though she was sick. But there were 5 of us kids, and they'll all tell you now, she's the first one that taught us to pray and led us to think, to believe. My mother, she died when I was 26, so, But anyway, I loved her very much.
Very good.
Mhm.
Good. Another good example of mentors, and that ties in with the current sermon series about being mentors and patrons and all that. So very good. Question number 2, who most exemplifies Christian values for you today, and how do they do that? Would it be a relative, a friend, a pastor, or another leader? And just a few of the values that I've seen talked about on the internet is people think that it's most important to encourage those who feel forsaken, to help the weak, be patient with everyone, and even warn those who are not living right, to be a teacher and a prophet. So I'm just curious, who do you think, either living or dead, exemplifies Christian values today? Would it be this lady, Mother Teresa, or would it be someone else? What do you think? You ever pick out somebody like that and think they are the epitome of Christian values?
Well, yeah, on the international scene, I would think Bishop Tutu. Close to home would probably be Mark Feldmeyer.
Mark Feldmeyer would be a good one. I agree too. Teacher, encouraging kindness, helping the poor, and service.
This is Terry Twilliger. For the last 10, 15 years, I've been part of the men ministries in our church. And what I really like is the leadership that we've had in that group through all those years. That is a group that we can address all these values that are important to everybody.
Good thought, Terry.
Steve, this is Doug. Yes, Mark Feldmeyer would certainly be on my list, but also Father Richard Rohr. and his writings and teaching have influenced me significantly.
Yeah, somebody that's not afraid to question, to challenge traditional thought, which of course Jesus did. Very good. Anybody else? How about anybody from history that really embodied those most? I'm looking for any hands up, hands up.
Quickly.
That's okay.
So,
Go ahead,
Steve,
Karen.
yep, this is Karen. So I've been reading this book called Saving Freedom, and it's by Joe Scarborough, I believe. And it goes back and it looks at the people throughout history that made decisions, tough decisions, really tough decisions, coming out of World War I and World War II and shaping our, not to get into foreign policy and all that, but to really look out for the people, especially after the world wars, who were so destructive, and they had such a deep-seated concern for humanity. And one of them would also be Harry Truman. Truman was kind of interesting. When he left office, he had really the very, very, very low ratings. But he did a whole lot in I don't know if you want to say saving humanity. That's a pretty big,
It's accurate from what you told me.
It's accurate, yeah.
It's accurate from what you told me.
Right, about, just helping the people in Europe and helping people as they came back to the United States. And it was a very humanitarian person. I don't know that they really called him that at that time, but that's sort of what I took away from that.
But she told me that he was instrumental in making sure he came in. What was the policy? He came in to make sure Europe, after the destruction that happened after World War II, that Russia did not come in and take place.
Right.
To take over.
To fill the void.
To fill the void and turn that whole area into communist countries.
Because World War II was so destructive, as everybody knows, it was so destructive. They had no buildings, they had no infrastructure, they had no crops, they had no.
We were a nationalist country up until that point. And that was the deciding point for Truman, that we became more of a socialist, more social justice, America oriented. She should do a book review on it because I'm volunteering.
Be good, Karen.
And I'm not trying to turn it political, but from what she told me, Truman made that decision, and it was policies he put in place that said we're not nationals anymore, we're going to care. So I would say,
so in history,
historically,
and I didn't know much about Truman. So anyway,
very good. Thank you.
Another one would be Jimmy Carter, then, if you're talking about presidents.
I was just going to say him, Judy. That's right. He really, to many, exemplifies service, questioning the traditions in his own denomination, many ways. Yeah.
I got an autograph book from Jimmy Carter when he came here to Denver and talked to him. And, getting back to Truman, he created the Marshall Plan. He didn't want it to be called the Truman Plan. He called it the Marshall Plan. But another person that's been involved in our church is Marcus Borg. In his book, we've had him here a number of times. That's been a very good leader. He gave examples that came to our church.
Yeah, that's true.
Great discussion on how we look at leaders. Very good. Okay, let's.
Truman, it's kind of a paradox. He's responsible for those good things that were just mentioned, but he also gave the approval order for the dropping of the atomic bombs. It probably killed, more people by one order than anything I can think of. Over 100,000 people in the two cities.
Yes, very important. Okay, let's move on to question number 3. If you knew you were going to meet God in 5 minutes, how would you feel? Would you be happy or scared? And what would you say to him? The reason I have Billy Graham's photo here is because that's a question that Billy Graham asked often in his stadium sermons. When I was in college, I went to one of his speeches in Kansas City and went up really to see what he'd look like up close when he did the altar call. And he stood right up there a few feet from me and was asking that very question and encouraging people to avoid the fires of hell, of course, by accepting Jesus, because you could meet him in 5 minutes. You don't ever know. But it's a good question. It reveals how we feel about ourselves, if we are ready and happy in our Christian lives, to ask if we are ready to meet God and talk with him. So how do you feel? Are you wanting to talk, Vicki?
Yeah, having come a long way in my journey, I have to say that kind of question is something that kind of fearfully drove me into a Christian life. And I'm not sure any of us are ever ready, because we're always growing and always seeking to know more about God. And now that I believe that God is loving and full of mercy and grace, I think that when we do meet him face to face, that being ready is not where it's at. I think it's just being willing to come into his presence. You know, I know that for myself, it was a fearful, it was a fearful drive that pushed me into, I mean, I'm thankful for it at this point, but I'm also very thankful.
Was it insurance? Was it
Insurance.
insurance against hell?
I'm also very thankful for growth, and I'm just I'm anxious. I'll say that I'm anxious to meet him, but am I ready? I don't know that we're ever completely ready.
Steve, I have some powerful things to share regarding this question. At certain times in my life, this has changed. So if you were to ask me when I was younger, I'd say I would be very afraid to talk with God. And then when Karen went through cancer, I was really pissed off. Okay. I was really pissed off. I nearly lost my faith. Why did you do this to my wife? Okay. And I was mad at him. I would be swearing at him, and I'm not going to swear here, but I'd be swearing at him. Okay. And I'd be pissed. Okay. And I would say during that time period, Dr. John Lee helped me, and Harvey, and hearing him and helped me to regain my faith, because it took a long time to regain my faith, because I nearly became an atheist. And if there's a God, why the hell would you do this? Okay. And I still carry that around a little bit, but I understand that it's just random by talking to other people. So I understood it was random, but then I don't want to monopolize this, but I'll make it short. But then I saw the outcome from what happened from parents getting cancer. The outcome affected so many people in a positive manner. It was, oh my God, my own children, their grades skyrocketed because they saw her battle cancer and overcome it, taking 9 days off of work and going back to work. Okay, and doing all these phenomenal things. She ran a 5K for cancer within a short period during her radiation. And, you know, seeing her battle this, and who was helping her? God. God was helping her. And it gets
Thank
emotional.
you, Bob.
So thank you. You know, so I say, you know, right now I'd have joy. You know.
Good. Thank you for sharing that.
You know, Steve, growing up in a fundamentalist Baptist background, I can agree with Vicki. You know, it kind of was a fear thing, But as I've grown older, I've come to appreciate it a little bit more. I think what Billy Graham and his simple message, you know, he wasn't perfect by any means, but what I appreciate about him is that he had a simple message. And by asking this question of people, what I now know is that it really wasn't, I don't think, to drive a sense of fear. It was to instill a sense of urgency. It was to instill a sense that, you know what, a change is going to be required of you. You are going to be a new creation, and you need to start that right now. You know what I mean? Because you just don't know. And I think, you know, in a weird sort, I didn't see it at the time. You know what I mean? I was kind of like Vicky. I was just scared to death of hellfire and brimstone. But, you know, I mean, looking back on it, I tend to kind of appreciate this aspect of evangelicalism and charismatic faith, is that it really stresses the importance and the urgency and the seriousness of getting this done and starting your life right now in Jesus Christ. You know what I mean?
Very
So that's
well
what
articulated. Very well articulated, Jerry. Thank you.
This
That's
is
awesome.
Terry. I'll tell you what I would, the day I met God, I'm going to ask him, how good a listener are you?
Yeah, that's another question is people always say, what questions, or I have questions for God. I'm going to ask him when I get there. And so we will see.
Actually, Steve, I'm going to remind him that I hope to be on the coattails of my wife.
Okay. That's a good point. Well, that's another question too. Do you believe in a physical place called heaven? Maybe exemplified by this picture we have of angels with wings and a beautiful place in the clouds. But of course, many progressive Christians think that the references to heaven are not of a physical place, that they are talking more about the kingdom of God here and now. And I just like to throw this question out occasionally to see what we think. My former pastor, Adam Hamilton, says that the references to heaven are both, in his opinion, that it's a physical place that we will go to, is described by people in the New Testament, and it also can refer to the kingdom here and have other references. What do you all think? Somebody share, would you?
I have come to believe, and over my years of thinking on these subjects, what Jesus said to the Pharisees when they asked him where the kingdom was. In Luke chapter 17, verses 19 and 20. They asked him where the kingdom was, and he said, it's not something to be seen. It's not here or there. The kingdom of God is within you. So I've come to believe that we make our own heaven and earth by the life we live. We have an opportunity to choose.
So Jim, at age 94, what do you think that the afterlife is, if there is any?
Well, I think we're like the plants. You know, like Jesus said, the flowers grow and then they wither and die. I think it's the end.
Okay.
We don't have any conscious life before life, and I don't think we have one after.
Thank you for sharing, Jim.
This is Terry. I'm 84, and I believe that I'm going to be going to a foreign country. And so I need to prepare myself how to live and work in a new foreign country.
Good for you. Good analogy.
Steve,
I think, go ahead.
I sort of mirror all three of the previous speakers. I've always thought of heaven and hell as being something that you create in your own life. I've not thought of it as a physical place. However, I've always sort of had another little thought in the back of my head that I kind of hoped that there was some sort of spirit world where our spirits might go after we die. But I'm of the opinion that if that happens, that's great. If it doesn't happen, that's okay too. That my job is to do the best I can with the life that I'm living right now.
Well said, Linda. Very good.
There was an interesting TV show a while ago that was talking about heaven and hell, or maybe it was a movie. And their basic concept was what's heaven for one person would be hell for another one. And so they were putting these different people in the different situations, and one of them it was heaven and one of them was hell, which is an interesting concept.
Very good.
I
Okay.
have a quick comment. I think our imagination is wide open on that, and I don't see it as feel it as a physical place, but a spiritual place. But I can't wait to be with in spirit some of my loved ones.
It's a very powerful image and draw for many of us. Okay, let's.
I've always thought that heaven is wherever God is, and as long as I'm there, then I'm in heaven. So
yeah.
Another great way to say it.
Well,
okay,
can I
go
just-
ahead.
there's
Go ahead.
there's one scripture that I really like, and I believe it's just something that I've heard, but to be absent in the body is to be present with
the Lord.
Christ, or to be
Yeah.
present with the Lord. And that is a very, very comforting thing for me. And I've always said to approach death and be fearful would be such a terrible thing. And so that gives me great comfort to know that to be absent in the body is to be present with Christ. And I love that.
Well said, Vicky. You all are so
Well,
smart.
Our bodies are part of the earth. They will disappear. And if you know someone very close to you that has died, you can see when they die. Suddenly, they're not there anymore. It's just an empty shell. So I believe that it's our spirit, or all of us have spirits. And I believe they'll are all going to a place that I don't know, I don't understand. It only God knows where that is and how that is. I don't understand that. But I just trust in God. That's where I'll be with my husband.
Thank you, everybody. Well, it's 11:11, and we're not going to get through all 10 questions, as I kind of figured we wouldn't. But this quick look at big questions is helpful nonetheless. Okay, number 5. Do you think near-death experiences are a real glimpse into the next life? And I ask that because we've got at least 2 people here today on this call that have had near-death experiences. And we know,
I'd like to
and
kick
I
this
will
off.
mention, because they both talked about this before, Bob Alexander and Connie Dix have both told us in class about their experiences. They've seen the tunnel and the light, and we don't have time for the full explanation today, but we could spend an hour, and we maybe do that, an hour on this topic alone. Some people think it is just the chemicals in your brain when you die that cause the tunnel experience and the light. And others think it may be a real entry for a short time into the next dimension. So what do you all think? Bob and Connie, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
I could kick it off, but as you heard, I've had a powerful divine experience, multiple divine experiences. But when my heart problem, I had a near-death experience, and I talked about it to the class. But I think, just to make it short, Steve, it made me ask more questions now than I had answers. You know, seeing a glimpse into that and the powerful nature of it, I'm convinced there is something after this life. that there's something there. I don't know if it's physical, but to me, I guess it made me ask more questions. You know what I mean, of the whole thing that I'll never get answered.
Of this life or that life?
Both of this life and that life. It gave me more power, or what's the word, Karen? It gave me more
insight
into this word and how important, just how we treat people, how, this life is so important, and we need to treat it very
pristine,
very pristine. How we treat people, how we act, how we social. But then I asked, what is, who was that? Was that God? Who was that? Was that something in my mind? Did I create it? You know what I mean? So I'm not saying, yes, that was heaven and that was God. At the time I did, but then afterwards I asked myself, what was that? So I'll be quiet and let somebody else talk. But to me,
Thank you, Bob. Connie, what did you come away from your experience with?
Yeah, I felt it was a wonderful experience and nothing to be afraid of. There was no building like you showed when you showed like a building with the angels, but there were spirits, and you could kind of zoom around, but it also gave me a sense of like I didn't want to leave there. And when I came back, like I crashed down, and I really didn't want to be back here at the time. And it changed me, and I wanted to do good work. Like every day, I want to be kind and things. So, and it made me more of a believer that there is a heaven. So nothing to be afraid of, though, at all. So something maybe to look forward to, and you're up there with your loved ones that have passed before you. So
Did you feel that or see loved ones there, Connie?
I felt it. Yeah.
I did too. I did
you?
too. Yes,
Yeah.
I did. And I felt the same exact thing that you felt. I did not want to come back. And I did not want to come back.
Yeah. It would be interesting to talk to you, like meet together sometime and really talk about it, because I don't really get to meet very many people that have had an out-of-body experience. So
Yeah, I would love to do that at some time, Connie. We need to do that.
yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Great.
It's interesting how this might correlate or not correlate with the Catholic theology that you first got to go through purgatory to get to heaven. So if you have a near-death experience and you're going into a car wash, I think there's some people like Mussolini or whatever, they're going to have to spend a lot of years in the car wash before.
I don't think so.
Well, I think this is a fascinating topic, and I've read several books on this, including the book by the child in Nebraska that's called 5 Minutes in Heaven. And also there was a neurologist on the East Coast that went through different experiences, but he thought he had visited heaven. And so it is quite the study these days. And would you all be interested in a class just on this, looking at the different aspects of this topic?
I
Will is
would.
saying yes.
I would see.
Well, let's do that, and we'll invite Bob and Connie to come back for that class too.
Okay. I've read a lot of books on it also, and I can identify with those books.
Steve, one additional thing that was small that I thought was I didn't understand at the time, but there was a number of children there at different ages that were, I felt, and I could actually see all around me, and I didn't understand why they were there. It wasn't just family. And when I came back, it was the children that I was going to meet, and that are going to die of congenital heart defects. I believe in my mind. because I did a lot for CHD, congenital heart defects for children, and ran marathons and gave them my medals. And it just really hits me hard emotionally, because those were the children that, you know what I mean? Anyways, it's a powerful, when it happens, it's a powerful experience. Yes. It affects
Absolutely. Yeah.
the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like to understand from some of you that are Catholic or have been Catholic, I'd like to understand their concept of how when you die, you go into a space. Because I think that what I've heard is it doesn't make an awful lot of sense to me. And I've also kind of felt like it is a way of the paying for prayers to get people out of purgatory.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I would say that if you want to understand the eschatology of a Catholic, that you really need to spend a lot of time understanding their concept of sin and the consequences of sin, and how they account to reconcile sin in the believer. It's really very, very different than anything Protestant. So once you understand how the sin works, and how they deal with that in confession and other things, you can kind of understand why purgatory is a thing, and it makes a lot of sense, actually, if you're a Catholic. And and the other thing I'll say too is don't let indulgences, don't equate that with just the buying of forgiveness, because that's not what indulgences are. In fact, the Catholic Church still grants indulgences. And so theologically, indulgences make a lot of sense. And indulgences don't necessarily get you off the hook, right? You still have to do stuff. It's just that you don't have to do as much stuff. So yeah, I mean, don't beat them up too bad. It's a really weird, it's very weird, especially like you said, Vicky, if you've grown up in very charismatic kind of, Assembly of God, Church of Christ kind of environments. It's a total anathema, right? It just doesn't make any sense at all, because they are diametrically opposed that way. So, but yeah, I'd spend some time, like researching that. It's pretty interesting, actually.
And that's another good topic we'll do sometime, is an hour on that. In fact, next week, Reverend Jerry, who just spoke, is going to talk to us about Orthodox denominations, what they believe and practice, like Greek Orthodox and others. And yeah, Jerry, we're excited to do that, because if you're friends with Jerry on Facebook like I am, you see the beautiful artwork that he posts of the Orthodox churches and denominations. Just the artwork alone is fascinating and has a story behind it. So Jerry will tell us about that next week. Okay, as we're wrapping up, Karen, I see you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh no, you took the words right out of my mouth. I would love to learn more about the Catholic, I think he said eschatology and purgatory. I don't have any understanding of that. And Jerry, the 2 minutes that you told me, I'm already hooked. So I'd love to understand more, especially from somebody who's got the perspective that you do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Jerry. Yeah, it would be great. I was raised Roman Catholic, and from my mind, it was physical places. It was purgatory. It was hell. It was heaven. Yeah, I was
so
taught.
a whole discussion would be very informative.
Yeah, it would be great.
Very good. Jim Watson, go ahead.
For number 6, number 1 is Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
Yes, our last question today. What religious music do you like best and why?
Well, it just I don't know. It gives me shivers up and down my spine. It just lifts me to the heights. Just the joy of that music.
Great. And it's Beethoven's which one, Jim?
Ninth Symphony.
Beethoven's Ninth. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It just lifts you to the highest plane of your feelings.
Well,
rely back on my Pentecostal background, and we sang choruses a lot that would maybe sometime too way too long, but we would and there are some very, very beautiful ones. Because He Lives, there is a river, that to me usher in a very attitude of prayer. And I will probably never ever be able to listen to those songs without feeling like I need to either, I just feel like I'm in God's presence when I hear those songs.
Very good.
I'd say the Handel's Messiah.
I was thinking that
That's
one
good.
too,
Yeah.
Roger. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess being in those little country churches it left a mark on me, right? Because I just love those, tried and true, take time to be holy, old rugged cross.
I
What a
do
friend.
too.
What
Yeah.
and my favorite is what a friend we have in Jesus,
Oh,
right? And
yes.
I love those
yeah,
songs.
yeah.
I would sit there and there'd be 15 people in the sanctuary, and you know what? They would belt it out like nobody's
Yeah.
business, and I was just like, hallelujah, it was awesome. So
I feel it a lot when I'm
Comfort
singing with the
soul.
CWC. I feel it a lot. I feel it a ton in the tenor section. I miss it a lot because the altos, nothing against sopranos, but something about altos singing and next to me in these hymns, I get emotional during the CWC. The choir, you know what I mean? I just like feel presence of God or something.
We've done a circle of very traditional churches and Assembly of God and now Methodist, and I have learned that the music in all these places, as long as the people's hearts are in them, that's what matters. It's not so much whether it's classical or Southern Baptist. It's just how the people are feeling and how they get involved in it that makes the music special.
And you see, Alice is a good historian. I would invite all of you to open your hymnals to the very front and read John Wesley's Rules for Singing. Go read that for homework. I think my favorite one is he says you need to sing lustily. I love that, right? But just read. He's got rules for how to sing there. So yeah.
That's great. That's funny. Do you all use CD music in your homes or your cars often of spiritual music? Do you have favorites, even your own mix of favorite songs that you play?
Yeah. Alexa knows my playlist.
Oh, you just ask Alexa to start it.
Yep.
And that is both interesting and creepy all at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, she's always listening. She's like God. She's always listening.
And she listens in the background. Mine is now talking to me.
Will she take confession?
Yeah, my grandson and his wife are in a praise and worship band, or they were when they lived here before they moved away, but I'm sure they'll find one where they're at. But their praise and worship music is very different today than even what we listened to. It's kind of rocky, and they did a little take right before Christmas time where they were out in the middle of a barn with some little old lights on, and it was beautiful, beautiful Christmas music. And not what I'm used to hearing, but it was very, very spiritual. And, God just has what he needs for each generation as they come along,
Sure, absolutely.
I must admit, rap doesn't do it for me.
There is Christian rap and
I know.
all kinds of, every type of music, there is a Christian application.
Yeah, that's right.
Tide with me, fast falls the evening tide.
Very good, Jim. Well, this is another topic for a good class we can do. Explore deeper and stories behind the songs and Charles Wesley's and John Wesley's lusty rules for singing. We will get into those.
Okay.
Okay, final thoughts in our last couple minutes here, folks. Has this been helpful, enjoyable to do a shallow dive into these questions to see what each other think? Or has it just been frustrating?
People think. And, they all have such good thoughts.
I think it's very helpful to hear what each of us are thinking and our experiences, and just to share. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Okay, next week, join us for Rev Jerry sharing about Orthodox denominations, and we will learn some new things.
Okay.
Okay, prayer,
Okay.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
thank the Lord for all of you and ask God to be with us in our country also this week and with both teams this afternoon.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
we gotta
Okay.
be
Bye.
equitable here. Okay. Everybody
Bye.
take care. We'll see you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye.
Go Chiefs.